Hi Melbourne Woods, great to be with you all again. This is Mrs. Evans and Rocky is off on the side. He's going to be jumping into the story time at any moment. Today's story is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to ask you actually to stop the video and get some paper and a pencil. So I'm going to give you a second to go do that. So hopefully you're back with your paper and your pencil. Today, after I read the story with you, I'm going to give you a couple of choices of activities to do. And the book that we're going to read today is one of my favorites. This book is called Possum Magic, and I'd like to thank Mem Fox for giving us permission to read her book today. The author is Mem Fox, and the illustrator is Julie Vivas. Now I'm going to read this book because when my kids were about your age, when they were in elementary school, we got to live in Australia for about a year and a half, and it was an amazing adventure. You can see them here. It was Christmas time, but in Australia, Christmas is in the summer. And you can see, what's that standing right there next to them? A kangaroo. And I brought some other little souvenirs we brought back. You guys know what this is, right? Another kangaroo. This one wasn't real though, of course. And we have a picture of a cockatoo. This was a present from my friend Louise, who lives down in Australia still. And this cockatoo reminds us of one that lived in our tree right behind our house. And every morning we named him Fred. He would wake us up. And we also brought back a didgeridoo. I wish I could play it for you, but I don't have that skill. But it was handmade. You can see all the beautiful artwork by the Aboriginal people. It's beautiful. So this is really like a treasured memory from Australia. And I also brought out my scrapbook. You can see we have a picture of the Sydney Opera House, which was one of the famous landmarks, and also the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So when we're finished today, maybe you'll want to research one of those famous landmarks in Australia. So here we go. Get ready. On your piece of paper that you should have now, we're going to be stopping and we're going to be thinking a lot about what we're reading today. You can either write, I notice, or maybe you're going to have a question. I wonder. So let's see. Possum Magic. First of all, do you think this book is going to be fiction or non-fiction? What's the author telling us? Possums are real, that's true. But I wonder if possums really create magic. Is this fiction or non-fiction? Let's see. Possum Magic, written by Mem Fox and illustrated by Julie Vivas. You can see here, I wrote this book, I wrote a little note for my daughter Faith. Always remember the magic of Australia. Love, Mom and Dad. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to share with you some of the animals we're going to see along the way. We're going to see a wombat, a kookaburra, a dingo. Have you ever heard of those Australian animals? Probably not. But I know you've heard of a koala and a kangaroo. They're pretty famous. But we'll stop as we read and we'll find out what a wombat is, what a kookaburra is, and what a dingo is. Once upon a time, oh, does that give us a clue? Is it fiction or non-fiction? I wonder. I'm noticing something. I notice there's a little house here in the picture. Do you like to read the pictures just like I do? I always take time to read the picture because the illustrator works really hard to give us a lot of information. Do you see? This is their house and their roof. And look, they've even got some clothes hanging out on the line to dry. Once upon a time, but not very long ago, deep in the Australian bush, that's like the woods, lived two possums. Their names were Hush and Grandma Poss. Oh, look at these pictures. Look at these illustrations. What a great job the illustrator did. Grandma Poss made bush magic. She made wombats blue. They're not usually blue. And kookaburras pink. They're not usually pink either. Are you starting to know whether this is fiction or nonfiction? She made dingoes smile. That's a dingo. And emus shrink. Emus, you might have seen those. They're really tall, tall birds, like an ostrich. But the best magic of all was the magic that made Hush invisible. These illustrations show that he's invisible. So here he wasn't invisible, but all of the sudden, he disappears. Now we know. It's fiction, right? We can't really disappear, even though sometimes we wish we could. There's our koala friend. What adventures Hush had. Because she couldn't be seen, she could be squashed by koalas. Look at her tail. Because she couldn't be seen, she could slide down kangaroos. Look at that. I'm wondering what this animal is. What do you notice? What do you wonder? I'm wondering, why did Hush want to be invisible? What do you notice on this page? Are you writing down noticings and wonderings? Look at this. Oh, I wonder what kind of snake that is. I'm noticing that Hush looks a little scared. Because she couldn't be seen, she was safe from snakes, which is why Grandma Poss made her invisible in the first place. We got our answer, didn't we? But one day, quite unexpectedly, Hush said, "Grandma, I want to know what I look like. Please, could you make me visible again?" "Oh, of course I can," said Grandma Poss, and she began to look through her magic books. Do you notice she has a toothbrush? I wonder why. What do you notice and wonder on this page? Do you notice right down here? Koalas has like sharp nails into the log or into the limb of the tree while she's sleeping. I wonder why. She looked into this book and she looked into that. There was magic for thin and magic for fat and magic for tall and magic for small. But the magic she was looking for wasn't there at all. Do you hear any rhyme on that page? Do you think the author did that on purpose? I wonder. Grandma Poss looked miserable. Does she? Did the illustrator make sure that the picture matched the words? She did. "Don't worry, Grandma," said Hush. "I don't mind." But in her heart of hearts, she did. Look at her expression. What do you notice? What do you wonder? All night long, Grandma Poss thought and thought. The next morning, just before breakfast, she shouted, "It's something to do with food! People food, not possum food, but I can't remember what. We'll just have to try and find it." So later that day, they left the bush where they'd always been to find out what it was that would make Hush seen. They ate Anzac biscuits in Adelaide. A biscuit is kind of like a cookie. Mornay and Minties in Melbourne, which is like candy. Steak and salad in Sydney. Remember that picture I've showed you of Sydney Opera House? That's where they went. And pumpkin scones in Brisbane. Hush remained invisible. "Don't lose heart," said Grandma Poss. "Let's see what we can find in Darwin." Darwin is a place, a city in Australia. Perhaps you could do some research to find out where. It was there in the far, far north of Australia that they found a Vegemite sandwich. What is Vegemite? Maybe you can research that too. Mr. Evans loves it on his toast in the morning. I don't like it at all. Grandma Poss crossed her claws and crossed her feet. Hush breathed deeply and began to eat. "A tail! A tail!" shouted both possums at once. And there it was, a brand new visible tail. Look! Do you remember what she's eating? What did Mr. Evans like? Vegemite, that's right. Later on a beach in Perth, they ate a piece of pavlova. Hush's legs appeared, and so did her body. "You look wonderful, you precious possum," said Grandma Poss. "Next up, Tasmania." And over the sea they went. I'm noticing their boat is different than I would travel on. Would you ever travel on an umbrella boat? What do you notice? What do you wonder? In Hobart late one night, in the kitchens of the casino, they saw a lamington on a plate. There it is there. It's a special dessert. Hush closed her eyes and nibbled. Grandma Poss held her breath and waited. "It worked!" she cried. "It worked!" And she was right. Hush could be seen from head to tail. Grandma Poss hugged Hush and they both danced. "Here we go round the Lamington plate, the Lamington plate, the Lamington plate. Here we go round the Lamington plate till early in the morning." What do you notice on this page? What do you wonder? From that time onwards, Hush was visible. But once a year on her birthday, she and Grandma Poss ate a Vegemite sandwich, a piece of pavlova, and half of a lamington, just to make sure that Hush stayed visible forever. And she did. What do you notice on this page? Do you notice some animals that you've never seen before? I wonder what that one is. How could we find out? What do you think? The end. Again, I want to thank Mem Fox for allowing us to read this book online today. And now that you've all done your noticings and your wonderings, I'm going to give you something else to do. You have a choice. You can either write down in your reader's notebook, if you have one at home, what the problem was and what the solution was, or if you'd rather, I'm going to give you a research assignment. When I do a research project, I usually start off with some questions that I like to find out. What do I want to learn from my research? Maybe you want to learn, where is Australia? Maybe you want to learn, what is the climate in Australia? Maybe you want to learn more about Australian animals. It's up to you. It's your research, and you can figure out the questions. You can start with 5 and get started on your research, and then maybe add some more. And even video your results. You can do a video presentation of your research. And all of our Fairfax County friends, we all know that Pebble Go is a great resource, and I happen to find out that there's a lot of information on Australia. So thanks for joining me this Friday. I'll see you next week. Until then, keep looking up for the sunshine and reaching for the stars. Have a great day.